What up, world? JB back again for DiduParlay. So I was sitting here going over the notes for UFC 322 tonight, and I thought it'd be a great idea if I give you guys a type of tutorial or a visual of how to make some of these bets. So it's not common for everyone to always bet UFC. Some of you may have not even bet UFC at all before, but I wanted to give you guys some examples of how to make these bets, how to add them to your parlays, how to adjust lines, what the lines even mean, what are these points, what's a money line, what's a FDGTD, what's an ITD, what are we talking about, right? So let's give you an example using tonight's card 322, and I have some picks here. These are not the finalized picks. If you want those, you're going to have to join that Telegram group. Find the link in the description below and get in the group. It's free. All of our picks are always free, every week, every day, all the time. All right, so let's jump right into it, okay? As you can see here up at the top, the first pick is Carlos Prates moneyline, ML moneyline, right? So let's start off with that. So I'm going to go back to my home screen here, and right up at the top in DraftKings, I can see in my tab, I have a UFC link. So I'm going to click on that. And right here in these tabs, I'm moving the bar so you can see it. We're already on UFC 322, so I'm just going to scroll down to find my fight. And I know the Prates fight is lower in the main card. So here we are. Leon Edwards going against Carlos Prates, right in the middle of our screen here. So in the UFC bets, you can see on the right, just like every other sport, they're going to give you the natural lines and the most commonly placed bets, right? Commonly placed bets is point spread, total rounds, and money line for UFC, okay? So we want money line, Carlos Prates. Simple enough. I just click on it and it throws it into my bet slip, okay? Now, if I had other picks in here, it would do what it normally does. It just added in to make it a parlay or, a multi-single bet. Okay, so let's move on. Simple enough. Let's move on to the next type of bet. We have Wellmaker versus Ewing under 2.5 rounds, okay? So let's go back into our DraftKings app, and I know Wellmaker's on the prelims, so let's scroll down a bit. All right, we got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Ethan Ewing in the middle of our screen here. And, I'm looking at total rounds, and it says over 1.5, under 1.5. So what am I supposed to do? I want 2.5. How do I bet 2.5? Well, you can see a link here in the bottom right of those boxes. It says more bets. So let's click on it. All right. So now what we see is a more detailed view of this specific fight, Wellmaker versus Ewing, right? Now, if I want to adjust those lines, right, for the point spread and the total rounds, then where I need to go is right up to these tabs. You can see I'm moving the tabs. I want to go to the second one over that says fight lines and click on it, okay? Now, up at the top, it is still giving me those natural fight lines, right? The natural line for the point spread, total rounds, and then the money line bets, of course. But what I want to do is get alternate lines on those bets, okay? So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you can see down here, I have alternative total rounds and alternate point spread, okay? Now, I want to adjust this line, so I'm going to move this bar over to 2.5, and I'm going to click on under 2.5. Perfect. It added it for me, okay, to my bet slip. Let's close out of that. Now, for UFC, the way the half rounds work is actually literally the half round, okay? So what we're saying when we say under 2.5 rounds is we don't think the fight is going to make it past 2.5 rounds, okay? A normal round in the UFC is 5 minutes, okay? So the half a round hits at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, so if we bet under 2.5 rounds, right, we're saying the fight will not make it to the third round at the 2 minute and 30 second mark. Okay, if this fight goes past that, then we lose. Okay, so if they're fighting, and they make it to the third round, and the fight in the third round makes it to 2 minutes and 29 seconds, we lose. Okay, so we're saying we don't think this fight is going to make it that far. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And on the flip side, right, if we had over 2.5 rounds on this bet, then we're saying it's going to make it to the third round and go past that 2 minute and 30 second mark. Okay, so let's move on to the next type of bet. We can see here we have Michael Morales plus 3.5 points. Now, I get asked this all the time when someone asks me for, what's your best bet for UFC, or what's a good bet that I can add to my, multi-sport parlay. A lot of times I tell them to bet a specific fighter on points. And there's a reason why I do that for specific fights, okay? But let's jump into it and find, here it is. Sean Brady versus Michael Morales, okay? Point spread. The natural line is 3.5. What does that mean? Okay, so for UFC, the way the scoring works is very similar. I mean, basically the same as boxing, right? In fighting, right, in combat sports, typically the points work like this. They work round by round, right? So in this instance, we have a 3-round fight. So let's use that as an example. In this 3-round fight, each round is scored individually, okay? Now, for each fighter, if they win a round, that's going to give them 10 points, okay? If they lose a round, typically they're going to get 9 points, right? So for that round, one fighter or the other won the round by 1 point, okay? Now, there are caveats to this, okay? You can have a situation where you have a 10-8 round, okay? 10-8 round means one fighter won by a dominant fashion in that round, okay? That means they won so dominant that the judges gave the losing fighter 1 less point on that round because of the performance, right? You can have other situations where the ref will take a point away, right? If one of the fighters has such, an egregious foul, right, against the other, but it's not like a, disqualification, the referee can decide to take a point away, whether it was an eye poke that was really bad, an illegal shot, right? An illegal shot like a shot to the back of the head, or you need a downed fighter in the head, right? Or you kicked him in the head when he was down, right? These different strikes and different things that you can't do, low blow strikes, right? If it's so bad, usually they review it. But in the review, if they decide, oh my gosh, this is really bad, even if it's a first-time offense, they can take a point away, right? So that's going to affect the lines of those points for that round, right? So what we want to look at is, let's think about this logically, right? Let's say in this fight, right, Brady versus Morales, let's say Sean Brady, he's the favorite. Let's say he wins every round by 10-9, right? So what it's going to look like on the judges' scorecards is 30-27, right? Now let's say all 3 judges have the same scorecard, right? 30-27 in favor of Brady. That means Brady won the point spread by 9 points, right? So if we were betting Morales plus 3.5 points, he didn't make it, right? He didn't make up the difference of those points. We're giving him 3.5 points, but he lost by 9. So we lose that bet. Now, another scenario, let's say Sean Brady won 2 of the rounds but lost 1 of the rounds, right? What that would look like on the judges' scorecards for all 3 would be 29-28. Okay? So on all 3 judges' scorecards, Sean Brady won by 1 point. So that adds up to 3 points, right? In that case, we would win our bet because we have Morales plus 3.5. We're giving him 3.5 points, but he lost by 3. So we still are in the green by half a point, right? So that's why I tell people in these 3-round fights, a lot of times the point spread is nice if you think it's going to be a close fight, because all we have to do is win 1 round, right? In the UFC, it's only 3 rounds, right? So if you think it's going to be a close fight, a close battle, that plus points is amazing. Now, on the flip side, if you are betting on a fighter to win in a dominant fashion, those minus points can also look great, right? Because if my fighter can win all of the rounds by a dominant fashion, then they're going to win by 9 points, right? So I can get an amazing spread on that, right? Now, another caveat of betting the points, let's click on our Morales 3.5. And there's a link down here underneath the description where it says more info, right? Not a lot of people click on this, so they don't even know about this, right? So if I bet a fighter for points, let's say it doesn't go to decision, right? You don't necessarily lose that bet, right? If your fighter that you chose on the point spread wins by a KO, submission, or DQ, then the bets placed on that fighter will be settled as a win. So if we bet Michael Morales plus 3.5, and let's say he knocks out Sean Brady inside and he wins inside the distance, then we still win this bet, right? So it's kind of like betting a single game parlay at that point, right? Because we're saying if this goes to a decision, I think Morales can at least win 1 round and he's going to be within the 3.5 point spread, right? Or I'm saying if it gets finished, I think he could finish this fight. So we get the duality of both bets in one, right? Now, on the flip side, if Sean Brady, let's say Sean Brady wins by submission, right, which is not crazy to say, let's say he submits Michael Morales, then obviously we lose this bet, right? Because not only did our fighter not win inside the distance, but he didn't make it to the decision to see, if he could make the 3.5 points or not, right? So it should make sense. And hopefully all of that makes more sense now. Like I said, I'm constantly getting questions about how is there a point spread, in UFC, right? So hopefully that starts to make more sense now. So let's move down to the next one. We got Wellmaker ITD. What is ITD? ITD stands for inside the distance. Again, I just like to use that acronym because I don't want to keep typing all of those words over and over in the group. I'll be honest, I'm being a little lazy. Okay, so let's find Wellmaker again in the prelims. And again, that type of bet is not here on the main screen. So I'm going to click into more bets. Now, up here in our tabs, you can see the third tab over says, I'm moving the tabs so you can see them, winning method, okay? So I'm going to click into winning method, and we want to take Wellmaker inside the distance. Well, if I view more, let's see, method of victory, I can see KO, TKO, DQ. We can say win by submission, win by decision. Well, if I think he's going to win inside the distance, that means I think he's going to win by KO, TKO, DQ, or by submission, right? Because I don't want this decision one, but I also want to combine these first 2 options, right? So what I can do is scroll down a little bit more, and we have here the next section, which is method of victory, double chance, right? Now, when I put in the group ITD inside the distance, or if you see that anywhere else, right, where you're finding a bet or someone tells you, hey, this person's going to win inside the distance, right, then what you can do inside of DraftKings is pick this second one down where it says Wellmaker to win by KO, TKO, DQ, or submission, right? Or if we were on the Ewing side for that bet, right, we'd scroll down here and it looks like we would get plus 500 on that bet, right? So basically I'm saying that fighter is going to win and it's not going to go to decision, right? He's going to win inside the distance, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And down here, you can see there's other mixtures of bets, right? If you think one fighter only has one path of victory and the other fighter only has one path of victory, then you can bet on these alternative method of victory, double chance bets, right? And if you scroll down some more, there's some other tabs where you can see different types of bets and different prop bets. I don't typically go into those sections, but they're there if you want them, and you can probably get really good odds on them, okay? So let's go back and let's go back to our notes. All right, the next type of bet going down is Kopylov versus Rodriguez, FDGTD. What in the world does that mean? FDGTD. Fight doesn't go to decision, right? Again, I'm lazy. I don't want to keep typing that out. So let's find Kopylov versus Rodriguez. Let's keep scrolling down. Okay. Kopylov versus Rodriguez. Again, let's go into more bets underneath that. Let's get our detailed view. And for me, I bet so much UFC that I know this bet is on the popular tab, which is the first tab that you go into, because a lot of people like to bet this type of bet. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to click on fight to go the distance, and I'm going to click on no. So basically we're saying the fight does not go the distance, right? It doesn't go to the judges' scorecards, right? Now, likewise, if I was on the other side of saying, okay, this fight is definitely going to go to the judges' scorecards, I feel strongly about that, then you can just click on yes, and there you go. If you want to bet it and find it somewhere else, you can find it in the fight props tab. And it's no different than what you see on the front screen, but it's just here readily available at the top of this section. And there's some other props down here. And you can I always encourage people to go through a lot of these tabs. You can find some really cool bets, really specific bets that have, really big odds. Betting on somebody by decision, betting them by a specific round, even betting a draw for plus 5,000. Very, very, very extremely rare thing that happens, but it is possible, right? When you get some of those points taken away for fouls and you get the 9-9s, right? The 9-9 rounds, those are the ones that typically end up in draws. You can see some of the fighter props for significant strikes landed by a specific fighter, total significant strikes, right? Strikes combined between both fighters, even takedowns landed in a fight, right? Different things like that. So let's go back, popular tab. Let's go back to our notes. The last type of bet we have here is a specific one. We kind of went over this already. Islam Makhachev to win by submission, right? If we're saying, we think his path to victory is by submission, then let's go into our made card fight, more bets, and we're going to go back to our winning methods tab, and I need to view more because I can't see Islam's submission bet. Oh, look at that. It's plus money. That seems like a good bet. So Islam Makhachev to win by submission, right? Add it to the ticket. Simple enough. And really quick, just like every other sport, you can go into the single game parlay builder and get those dynamic odds to create a single fight parlay where you can have, moneyline bet plus total over under rounds, even down to the total minutes of a fight. You can still have your fight props with the method of victory, the winning rounds, significant strikes, takedowns, total knockdowns, right? Specific fighter props, how many strikes is each fighter going to get, how many knockdowns, how many takedowns, all that type of stuff, right? So you can kind of go crazy in there if you want. Okay. So I think that's it for now. If you do have more questions or more things you want to learn, comment below. If you like this type of content, also let us know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe on all of our videos. Like I said, if you want the finalized total picks, we usually give about 10 to 15 picks for UFC. Then join the Telegram group below. The link is in the description. And as always, guys, please bet responsibly, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.